So you spent 3 weeks learning price action trading. You watched every YouTube video, you took notes, you even paid for that course. And for the first few days, it felt amazing. You were spotting support and resistance levels like a pro. You'd look at a chart and think, oh yeah, that's a clear rejection at resistance. I'm taking this short. Then you hit a losing streak. 3 trades, 4 trades, 5 trades in a row, and suddenly you're on YouTube at 2 a.m. watching videos about RSI divergence. Because clearly price action doesn't work. The losses proved it, right? So you switch, you spend another 2 weeks mastering RSI. You learn about overbought and oversold conditions. You understand divergence patterns, and it works great until it doesn't. Another losing streak hits. Now you're looking at MACD crossovers. Then Fibonacci retracements. Then someone mentions ICT concepts, and you go down that rabbit hole for a month. Then you hear about order flow and volume profile. So you switch to that. Here's the thing. You've been trading for 8 months now, and you've tried 7 different strategies. You've got a trading journal that looks like a strategy museum. And somehow, despite all this learning, despite all this effort, despite watching hundreds of hours of content, you're still not profitable. In fact, you might be down more money now than when you started. Sound familiar? Because if you've been trading for more than 6 months and you're still searching for the right strategy, we need to talk. This isn't a strategy problem. This is a psychology problem disguised as a strategy problem, and it's costing you way more money than you realize. Welcome to Trading Psychology Lab, and we spend way too much time thinking about why smart traders keep sabotaging themselves with the strategy hopping. If you're someone who has a folder full of trading indicators, a browser history full of best trading strategy 2025 searches, and a P&L that looks like you're just paying tuition to the market, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to talk about why you keep switching trading strategies too often. And look, this isn't another video telling you to just be disciplined or stick with one strategy. I'm not going to give you some motivational speech about persistence. We're going to dig into the actual psychology and mathematics that make strategy hopping feel completely rational in the moment, even though it's absolutely destroying your trading account. We're going to look at the real numbers. We're going to examine what's happening in your brain when you make that decision to switch. And most importantly, we're going to figure out how to break this cycle so you can actually start building real trading skill instead of just collecting strategies like Pokemon cards. Because here's what nobody tells you. The profitable traders you admire aren't successful because they found some magical strategy you haven't discovered yet. They're profitable because they stopped doing what you're doing right now. They picked something decent and stuck with it long enough to actually get good at it. That's literally the difference. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that matters and how to do it yourself. Here's what most people don't realize. According to a study published in the Journal of Financial Markets, traders who switch strategies more than 3 times in their first year have a 91% failure rate. 91%. Let that sink in for a second. If you've switched strategies 4 times this year, you have a 9% chance of becoming consistently profitable. 9%. But here's the kicker. Traders who stick with one strategy for at least 6 months, even if it's not the optimal strategy, have a 68% better chance of reaching consistent profitability compared to strategy hoppers. Think about that for a second. It's literally not about finding the perfect strategy. It's about sticking with a decent strategy long enough to actually learn how to use it properly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Research from a major prop trading firm that trains hundreds of traders per year found that the average trader switches strategies after just 23 losing trades. 23. That's not even a full month of trading for most people. And here's why this is absolutely destroying your account. Any legitimate trading strategy, even the good ones, will give you losing streaks. A strategy with a 60% win rate, which is actually excellent in trading, will statistically give you a losing streak of 5 trades in a row, approximately every 25 trades. That means if you bail after 23 losing trades, You might be abandoning a winning strategy right before it starts working in your favor. You're literally quitting right before the probability starts evening out. And get this, the same research found that traders who make it to profitability trade their chosen strategy for an average of 347 trades before they even consider modifying it. Not switching to something entirely different, just modifying small elements. 347 trades. Meanwhile, most failing traders never make it past 100 trades with any single approach. They're perpetually in the learning phase and never reaching the mastery phase. All right, let me show you some math that's going to completely change how you think about this. Let's say you're using a strategy with a 55% win rate. That's actually pretty good, right? It's better than a coin flip. Most retail traders would be thrilled with 55%. If you risk 100 per trade, win 150 when you're right, and lose 100 when you're wrong, you're making money over time. The math is simple. 55 wins, x 150, as suppose 8,250 in profits. 45 losses, x 100, 4,500 in losses. Over 100 trades, you're up 3,150. That's a 37% return on your risk capital. That's fantastic, but here's the thing. With a 55% win rate, you can easily hit losing streaks. This isn't a flaw in the strategy. This is just basic probability. In fact, if you run the numbers with a 55% win rate, you'll experience a streak of 5 losses in a row roughly every 25 trades. You'll hit a streak of 3 losses in a row every 10 to 12 trades. This is mathematically guaranteed to happen. So here's what actually happens in the real world. You start trading. First 5 trades, you lose all 5. You're down $500. Your brain is absolutely screaming at you that this strategy doesn't work. Every fiber of your being is telling you to switch. So you switch. You find a new strategy. You're excited again. Fresh start. But this strategy also has a 55% win rate because that's actually realistic for retail traders. And guess what? The probability doesn't care that you switched. You might hit another losing streak right away. Maybe you win 2, then lose 4. Now you're down another $200. So now you've lost money with 2 strategies. You switch to a third, then a fourth. Each time you're hitting those statistically normal losing streaks, but you're interpreting them as proof that the strategy doesn't work. Here's what you don't realize. If you had just stuck with strategy number 1, by trade 100, probability would have evened out. You would have won about 55 trades and lost about 45. You'd be up 3,750. But because you switched after every losing streak, you never gave any strategy enough time to play out its probability. You're perpetually in the unlucky variance phase and never reaching the edge playing out over time phase. Now you might be thinking, but Nick, what if the strategy actually doesn't work? What if I'm just wasting time on something that's genuinely broken? Shouldn't I cut my losses and try something else? Look, that's the exact thought that keeps you trapped in this cycle. Because here's what's really happening in your brain. And this is where it gets fascinating from a psychology perspective. When you first learn a new strategy, you get a massive dopamine hit. It's called novelty bias, and your brain is basically hardwired for it. Your brain absolutely loves new things. It feels like progress. You're learning, you're growing, you're getting better. There's excitement and there's hope. You watch those YouTube videos and think, this is it. This is the missing piece. And for the first few trades, you're hyper-focused. You follow every rule perfectly because it's fresh in your mind. You're careful. You're deliberate. You double-check everything. And sometimes you even win a few trades right away, which reinforces that this new strategy is the one. Then reality hits. You take a few losses, the novelty wears off, and suddenly that same strategy feels boring and broken. The excitement is gone. Your brain wants another hit of new. It's literally the same neurological pattern as someone getting bored with a new phone and wanting to upgrade. But there's something else happening too, and this is crucial. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. When you first learn a strategy, you don't know what you don't know. You watch a 20-minute YouTube video, you think you understand it, and you feel confident. You're at peak confidence on the curve. Then you start trading it for real, and you realize there are 1,000 nuances nobody mentioned. When exactly do you take the trade? When do you skip it? How do you manage it in choppy markets versus trending markets? What do you do when your signal appears but volume is low? What about during major news events? Suddenly you realize this is way more complex than you thought. You're descending into the valley of despair on that curve, and your brain interprets this realization as the strategy is bad, when actually you're just entering the phase where real learning happens. This is exactly where you should be doubling down on practice. But instead, you bail and start over with a new strategy, which feels simple again, until it doesn't. Here's another thing that nobody talks about, and this is probably the most insidious trap of all. We live in an era of infinite choice. You can Google best trading strategy and get 47 million results in 0.63 seconds. Every trading guru on YouTube claims to have the holy grail. Every back-tested strategy shows beautiful equity curves going up and to the right. Every Discord channel promises insider secrets. So your brain starts thinking, if I just find the right strategy, I'll print money. There's got to be one out there that just works consistently with minimal effort. I just haven't found it yet. But this is completely backwards, and here's why. A comprehensive study from the University of California analyzed over 19,000 retail trading accounts over a 6-year period. They looked at everything: strategy type, win rate, risk-reward ratios, market conditions, all of it. And here's what they found. The strategy itself explained only about 15% of the variance in profitability. 15%. That means 85% of whether you make money or lose money has nothing to do with which strategy you're using. You know what explained the rest? Risk management, position sizing, emotional control, consistency of execution, the ability to follow your own rules. All the boring stuff that doesn't make for good YouTube thumbnails. All the stuff that requires discipline and self-awareness instead of just learning a new pattern. The traders who were profitable in that study weren't using some secret strategy you've never heard of. They were using basic support and resistance, simple moving averages, RSI, MACD, trend lines, literally the same stuff everyone learns in week 1. The difference is they actually mastered the execution. They knew when to take the trade and when to skip it. They managed their risk properly. They didn't overtrade. They controlled their emotions. Think about this for a second. A chef with a cheap $20 knife who's been cooking for 10 years will absolutely destroy an amateur with a $500 Japanese chef's knife. The tool isn't the limitation. The skill is. And in trading, the strategy is just the tool. You're the variable that determines success or failure. Let me show you something that's going to blow your mind, because this is the part that nobody ever talks about. Every time you switch strategies, there's a massive hidden cost that doesn't show up in your P&L, but it's absolutely killing your progress. Let's say you spend 2 weeks learning a new strategy. You watch the videos, you read the articles, you practice on a simulator. That's 2 weeks, roughly 30-40 hours of focused effort. That's time you could have spent practicing your old strategy, refining your execution, building pattern recognition. But it gets so much worse than that. When you switch strategies, you lose all your accumulated pattern recognition. See, when you trade the same strategy over and over and over again, your brain starts recognizing patterns unconsciously. You start developing what people call intuition, which is really just your subconscious processing thousands of data points faster than your conscious mind can analyze them. You look at a chart and immediately feel whether it's a high-quality setup or a low-quality setup. You can't always explain why, but you know. That's not magic. That's your brain having seen that pattern play out 200 times and recognizing the subtle differences between the ones that work and the ones that fail. But when you switch strategies, you reset that counter to 0. All that pattern recognition, gone. You're back to being a complete beginner. You're back to consciously thinking through every single decision, which is slow and prone to error. So let's do the actual math on this. Research on skill acquisition suggests it takes about 200 repetitions to internalize a complex pattern. In trading, that means 200 trades to really develop unconscious competence with a strategy's nuances. If you switch strategies every 23 trades, remember that's the average, you'll need to place 740 trades before you finally stick with something long enough to master it. At one trade per day, which is reasonable for swing trading, that's almost 5 years of spinning your wheels, 5 years of going nowhere. Meanwhile, the trader who picked a decent strategy on day one and stuck with it reaches 200 trades in 200 days. That's less than 7 months if they're trading daily, or about 10 months if they're swing trading. They're already developing expertise and building their account while you're still in the trial and error phase, wondering why nothing works. The opportunity cost is absolutely massive. And this doesn't even account for the emotional cost, the frustration, the self-doubt, the constant feeling that you're missing out on something better. Now, here's what's really going on, and this is going to sting a little bit, but we need to address it because this is the core issue that nobody wants to admit. You're not switching strategies because they don't work. You're switching because it's psychologically easier than admitting you're not executing them correctly. Let me explain. Look, when you take a losing trade, there are only two possible explanations. Either the strategy is fundamentally flawed and it doesn't work, or you made a mistake in execution. And guess which one is easier for your ego to accept? If the strategy is bad, you're completely off the hook. You can blame the system. You can feel smart for discovering it doesn't work. You can tell yourself you're being intelligent and adaptive by moving on to something better. Your self-image as a competent person remains intact, yeah, in tone. But if you made a mistake, if you entered too early, or managed the trade emotionally, or picked a low-quality setup, or broke one of your own rules, now you have to face the uncomfortable fact that you're the problem. That's painful. That requires actual self-reflection and change. That's hard. So your brain does something really clever to protect you from this discomfort. It finds evidence that the strategy is bad. You start remembering the losses more vividly than the wins. That's called negativity bias, and it's incredibly powerful. You notice other traders on Twitter posting wins with different strategies that seem better. You find YouTube videos exposing the flaws in your current approach. This is called confirmation bias, and it's absolutely destroying your trading account. Once you've decided a strategy doesn't work, your brain becomes a detective looking for evidence to support that conclusion. You ignore the winning trades or write them off as luck. You focus exclusively on the losing trades and use them as proof. And here's the really insidious part. Switching strategies feels productive. It feels like you're taking action, like you're problem solving, like you're being smart and adaptive. It gives you that little dopamine hit of progress, but you're not making progress. You're just resetting the clock and starting over. It's like trying to dig a well. You dig down 10 feet, don't hit water, so you move to a new spot and dig another 10 feet. Still no water. So you move again. You do this 10 times. Now you've got 10 shallow holes and no water. Meanwhile, the person who stayed in one spot and dug 100 feet down, hit water at 60 feet, and now has a functioning well. Here's something I want you to do right now, and I'm serious about this. I want you to think about every strategy you've tried in the last 12 months. Price action, moving average crossovers, Fibonacci retracements, Elliott wave, ICT concepts, supply and demand zones, order flow, volume profile, candlestick patterns, whatever you've tried. For each one, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Did I actually primarily prove it doesn't work? Or did I just give it up when it got hard? Did you trade it long enough to overcome the normal statistical variance? Did you journal your trades and identify patterns in your mistakes? Did you refine your execution based on what you learned? Did you give it 100 trades, 200 trades, 300 trades? Or did you hit a losing streak, feel frustrated, someone else talking about a different approach, and jump ship? Because here's the truth that everyone in the trading industry knows, but nobody wants to say out loud. All of those strategies can work, every single one. I personally know profitable traders using each of them. I know price action traders making six figures. I know indicator traders crushing it. I know volume traders, order flow traders, ICT traders, all profitable. The strategy isn't the problem. The strategy has never been the problem. The problem is you're treating trading like a treasure hunt, frantically digging in different spots looking for the one magical system that requires no effort, no learning curve, and generates instant profits. But trading isn't a treasure hunt. Trading is a skill, and skills require repetition, failure, adjustment, and persistence. They require you to suck at something for a while before you get good at it. There's no shortcut around this. There's no strategy so good that it bypasses the learning curve. Think about learning to play guitar. Imagine you practice C major chord for 2 weeks, you mess it up a few times, your fingers hurt, and then you decide, you know what? This chord doesn't work for me. I'm going to learn piano instead. Then after 2 weeks on piano, you switch to drums, then to saxophone, then back to guitar, but this time you're learning jazz instead of rock. You'd never become a musician. Everyone would immediately tell you the obvious truth. Pick an instrument and stick with it long enough to get good. The instrument doesn't matter nearly as much as the commitment to mastery. But somehow in trading, we convince ourselves that switching is the smart move. We tell ourselves we're being adaptive and open-minded. But we're not. We're just avoiding the hard work of getting good at something. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is crucial. There's a breakout point in every learning curve where things suddenly click, where it all starts making sense, where the fog lifts and you can finally see clearly. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the 10,000-hour rule in his book Outliers, suggesting that it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become an expert at something. But more recent research by Anders Ericsson and others suggests the actual number varies significantly by skill. Some skills require more time, some require less. For trading specifically, based on data from prop firms and institutional training programs that have trained thousands of traders, most traders hit a major inflection point around 500 hours of screen time with a single approach. That's where the magic starts happening. That's where you start recognizing patterns unconsciously, where you stop second-guessing every single decision, where your win rate stabilizes because you're no longer making rookie execution mistakes, where you develop the feel for market conditions that separates consistent traders from gamblers. 500 hours sounds like a lot, but let's break it down. If you're studying charts and trading for 2 hours per day, that's 250 days. That's less than a year. That's 8-9 months of focused effort with one strategy, and you'll likely reach that inflection point where trading starts to feel natural. But here's the problem. If you switch strategies every month, you never get there. You're perpetually in the first 50 hours, where everything is confusing, where losses feel random, where you can't tell a good setup from a bad one. You're quitting right before the breakthrough, every single time. You're like a runner who gives up at mile 12 of a marathon, then starts a new marathon the next week and quits at mile 12 again. You never cross the finish line because you keep starting over. And the tragic part is that breakout point is real. It's not some motivational myth. Traders genuinely do reach a point where things click, where their equity curve starts trending upward consistently, where they stop feeling anxious about every trade. But you have to put in the hours with one approach to get there. All right, so here's the actionable part. If you recognize yourself in this video, if you've been that person switching strategies every few weeks, here's exactly what you need to do. And I want you to actually do this, not just nod along and keep doing what you've been doing. First, pick one strategy. I genuinely don't care which one you choose. Seriously, price action, indicators, order flow, ICT, supply and demand, whatever resonates with you, they all work if you execute them correctly. Stop looking for the best one and just pick one that makes logical sense to you. But here's the key requirement. It needs to have 3 clear elements. It needs a crystal clear entry rule, not kind of around here, but a specific objective rule. It needs a clear exit rule for both winners and losers. And it needs a clear risk management rule that tells you exactly how much to risk on each trade. If you can't explain your entire strategy in 3 sentences, it's too complicated. Simplify it. I buy when price breaks above the 20-day high with above average volume. I risk 1% of my account with a stop below the previous swing low, and I exit at 2R or when price closes back below the 10-day moving average. Done. That's a complete strategy. Second, commit to 100 trades minimum. Not 10, not 50. 100 trades, all documented. You're not allowed to judge whether the strategy works until you hit 100 trades. This is non-negotiable. Journal every single one. Entry price, exit price, result, market conditions, and most importantly, what you learned. This journal is everything. This is where the real learning happens. Not in watching more YouTube videos, in reviewing your own trades and identifying your patterns of mistakes. Third, fix. Only one thing at a time. After every 20 trades, review your journal and identify the single biggest mistake you're making. Not 5 mistakes. One, the most impactful one. Then spend the next 20 trades focused exclusively on fixing just that one thing. Maybe you're entering too early before the setup is fully formed. Fix that. Then maybe you notice your stop losses are too tight and you're getting stopped out before the trade can work. Fix that. Then maybe you're taking profits too early because you're scared of giving back gains. Fix that. This is how you actually improve. Not by finding a new strategy, but by systematically debugging the one you have. Every 20 trades, one improvement. After 100 trades, you've made 5 meaningful improvements to your execution. That's massive progress. Fourth, track your consistency, not your profit. In your first 100 trades, you're not trying to get rich. You're trying to prove you can execute the strategy the same way every single time. Can you follow your rules? Can you resist the urge to overtrade? Can you take every valid setup and skip every invalid one? That's the only metric that matters right now. Because here's something crucial that most traders miss. You can't fix a strategy you're not executing consistently. If every trade looks different, if you're breaking your rules constantly, you have no idea what's actually working and what isn't. You're just gambling with extra steps. You need data, and you need that data to come from consistent execution. Look, I know this isn't what you want to hear. I know you clicked on this video hoping I'd tell you about some secret indicator combination or some brilliant strategy that'll change everything. Something you haven't tried yet that'll finally be the answer. But the truth is uncomfortable. You already have everything you need. The profitable strategy you're looking for isn't hiding on some guru's paid Discord server. It's not locked behind some $2,000 course. It's not some secret that only professional traders know. It's probably sitting in your bookmarks right now labeled old strategy that didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because you didn't work it long enough. The only difference between you and a profitable trader isn't knowledge. It's not intelligence. It's not access to better tools or information. The only real difference is persistence. That's it. Profitable traders aren't smarter than you. I've met plenty of profitable traders who aren't particularly bright. They didn't find a better strategy than you have. They're often using simpler strategies than the complex systems you've tried. They don't have some special gift or talent. They just stopped quitting. That's literally the entire difference. They picked something decent and they stuck with it long enough to get good at it. They pushed through the losing streaks. They analyzed their mistakes instead of blaming the system. They built a skill instead of collecting strategies, like their Pokemon cards. And here's the hardest truth of all, the one that should make you angry at yourself. Every single month that you spend searching for a better strategy is a month you could have spent mastering the one you already have. Think about that. If you've been trading for a year and you've tried 6 different strategies, you've essentially wasted a year. You could have been 6 months into mastering your second strategy by now. You could have 600 trades of experience with one approach. You could be profitable. But instead, you're starting over again. You're a beginner again. You're excited about the new approach again. And in 2 months, you'll be here again looking for the next thing. So here's my challenge to you. And I want you to really think about this. Close all those browser tabs you have open right now. You know the ones. Best Scalping Strategy 2025. Why indicators don't work. Secret trading method revealed. Unsubscribe from half those trading YouTube channels you follow. Not mine, obviously, but the ones that are just constantly pumping out new strategies and systems. You don't need more strategies. You need less. Stop searching for the Holy Grail. It doesn't exist. The Holy Grail is you executing a decent strategy consistently over time. That's it. That's the secret. Pick one strategy today. Right now, write down the rules on a piece of paper. Entry, exit, risk management. 3 sentences, then commit to 100 trades with 0 exceptions. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have losing streaks that make you question everything. You're going to doubt yourself. You are going to see other traders on social media posting screenshots of wins with different strategies, and you're going to think you're missing out. You're going to feel FOMO so badly it physically hurts. But that discomfort, that's not a sign you're on the wrong path. That's a sign you're actually learning something real. That's a sign you're building a skill instead of just consuming information. Because the only way out is through. There's no shortcut, there's no hack, there's no strategy so good that it bypasses the hard work of getting good at trading. You can spend the next 5 years collecting strategies and going nowhere. Trading accounts slowly bleeding out, confidence eroding, wondering if you're just not cut out for this. Or you can spend the next 6 months mastering one strategy and actually work well in building a skill that compounds over time. The choice is completely yours. But if you're ready to stop strategy hopping and start building real trading skill, make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we talk about the psychology and mathematics that actually make you profitable, not the hype and shortcuts that keep you broke. Drop a comment below and tell me, how many strategies have you tried in the last year? Be honest, no judgment here. Sometimes just admitting it out loud is the first step to breaking the cycle. And if this video helped you realize something about your own trading, if it made you see this pattern in yourself, smash that like button. It helps YouTube show this to other traders who desperately need to hear this message. I'll see you in the next one. Stop looking for the perfect strategy. Start executing the one you have. And for the love of God, give it more than 23 trades before you decide it doesn't work.